Welcome to the Capstone tutorial, and today I will be walking you through the first initial round of the CapSim simulation program. My name is Brandon Griffin, and I am the tutor for the 2019-2020 school year. I'm getting my MBA at UVU, and I've truly enjoyed being the tutor for Capstone, for CapSim. So let's go ahead and get started. This is the page that you see when you log on to Capstone. A couple of key pieces of information that we're going to need at first. We're going to need our situation analysis, and we're going to need our Capstone courier. To get to our situation analysis, which you should have completed before you're beginning the situation, you're going to hit Getting Started, go over to the situation analysis, and I like to use the ideal spots of the situation analysis. This is going to help with our R&D, and you already calculated these numbers. So let's go ahead and keep the situation analysis open, which we have in this tab, and let's go to Decisions, and let's launch our official spreadsheet. This spreadsheet is where we are going to be making all of our decisions. You can see my name, you can see my class, what team I am, who my professor is. We're going to be making research and development, marketing, production, human resources, finance, and eventually TQM decisions. So we have our situation analysis in this tab, and let's go ahead and open up our Capstone courier. There are a few ways to get to this, but I like to be in the web spreadsheet, and you go to reports, and you just hit any number between 1 and 12. This is all the Capstone courier, but this just chooses your launch page. So let's go to the front page. And I already have the Capstone courier opened up in this tab behind, so I'm going to go ahead and close this just for my convenience. So this is your Capstone courier in the right side. I'm going to maximize this for a minute. So the Capstone courier is a review of the previous year. We are making decisions for year 2020. But this is a review for 2019. You can see I'm on Team Andrews, Brandon Griffin, I'm the tutor. And this gives us information, this gives us financial ratios and statistics. We need to see if we got an emergency loan, we look at our sales, we look at our contribution margin, and we can see what our competitors are doing as well. We can see our market share, another fancy little graph. We can see our stock and bond ratings. Here's a more detailed view of our financial information. Here's our production, how many units we sold, how many units we had left over in our inventory, our contribution margin, and what our competitors did as well. Now, some of the most useful information that you'll be using round by round are these market segment analysis pages. We're in 5 segments. We're in the traditional, low end, high end, performance, and size. So to begin, we're going to look at these traditional market segment analysis. So let's go back to our web page, and let's start making some official decisions. We are literally running a company here. So let's go to our R&D, our research and development. So each company starts with the same amount of products, the same type of products, and the exact same sales and financial statistics. For this practice simulation, we are on Team Andrews. So we have our Able product, which is part of the traditional segment. We have our Acre, which is the low end, Atom, which is the high end, Aft, which is the performance, and Agape, which is size. And it's okay if you forget which names go with which segments. You can find that information in your Capstone courier. If you go to page 4 to your production analysis page, we can see all the names of the products. Able, the primary segment is traditional. Acre, primary segment is low end. And when you get into your teams and when you start doing the simulation on your own and against each other, you might be assigned to some of these other teams, and you can find the information here as well. So whenever I start the simulation, I like to look at R&D first. So I look at my Capstone courier, I make sure that I had enough sales, I look to see if I got an emergency loan, and then I go to we're going to working on Able, which is our traditional product. So let's go ahead and go to our traditional market segment analysis. And remember, the Capstone Courier is a review of last year. It's a summary of the year that just concluded. So, the traditional customer buying criteria. The buying criteria is specific for each industry and for each product. So these numbers change. For traditional, the most important factor in a customer's buying decision is age. They want an ideal age of 2, and that has an importance of 47%. Next, they care about price, and last year they expected a price between $20 and $30. Third up is the ideal position, which is their performance and their size. And this 5.0, 15.0, we need to remember that this is for last year. So this is where our situation analysis comes in. And we look at reliability, and that's fourth. They care about that the least, at only 9% weighting. So number 1 is age, 2 is price, 3 is reliability, 3 is ideal position, and 4 is reliability. But if we look at low end, it changes a little bit. Price is number 1, age is number 2, and ideal position, reliability. If we go down to something like high end, they care about ideal position and age, 1 and 2, but price is actually the lowest. They only care about price 9%. So let's go ahead and start making some decisions for R&D. A few rules before we start making decisions. So this is our able product. The performance is 5.5 and 14.5. And the MTBF, the mean time between failures, which is also known as our reliability, is 17,500. If ever you don't know or forget the information that's on this page, go ahead and click one of the I's next to this information I, and it'll give you more information. So, a couple rules about R&D. Anytime you change the performance or the size, it cuts the age profile age, how old the product is in years, in half. Let me say that again. Each time you change performance or size, not MTBF, it cuts this age profile in half. So let's go ahead and look at our situation analysis, which we had pulled up from the beginning, and we completed these tables on our own before we started the simulation. If you have not, these are relatively simple to fill out. So round 0 was the round we just concluded. Looking up here, round 1, year 2020, these are the decisions we're making. So let's go to round 1 for able, which is our traditional product. And they want a performance of 5.7, and they want a size of 14.3. So let's go ahead and put that in our spreadsheet. Let's change that to 5.7 and decrease our size to 14.3. And notice what it does to our revision date, our age at revision, and our R&D cost. And also notice what it does to our age profile. If you can remember, the traditional segment wanted an ideal age of 2 years old. So we're at 3.1 years old, and at the end of the year, it's going to be at 4.1 years old. So we changed the performance and size, so this is going to cut our age in half. Let's go ahead and recalculate our numbers. So you see now, since we changed 5.7 and 14.3, and we can see this on our perceptual map, just a map of where our products are relative to the segment, it cut our ideal age from 3.1, and on March 15th, it was 3.3 years old, and it cut it to 1.7 years old. So our revision date is the 15th of March in 2020, and the age of revision is 1.7 years old, with an R&D cost of $206,000. So let's look at our traditional customer buying criteria. They have an ideal age of 2. So this at 1.7, and we can see down here on March 15th, it'll be 1.7 years old. And when we hit December 31st, the end of the year, it's going to be 2.5 years old. So this is exactly perfect what the customer wants. So let's go back to that traditional customer buying criteria. Next we have price, which is dealt with in the marketing decision tab, so we're not going to look at that now. And then number 3 is the ideal position. Remember, these are specific to each one of the different segments. Agape, which is size, is going to have different customer buying criteria than Able, which is our traditional product. Last year, they wanted an ideal position of 5.0 and 15.0 for the size. We updated this performance and this size metric with a number that we found in our situation analysis. So, 5.7, 14.3, that works. Next, let's look at the reliability. Our MTBF, mean time before failure. The mean time between failure is also known as our reliability. And for traditional, they want it to be between 14,000 and 19,000. One thing I need to note, the reliability between 14,000 and 19,000 will not change. And also, the ideal age of 2 years old, that will not change. The things that will change are price and the ideal position. Once we get to price, I'll teach you the rule that says the price has to go down by 50 cents every year. But we'll get back to that. So number one, age will always be number one for traditional, and it'll always be 47%. 2 will always be price at 23%. 3, ideal position. 4, reliability. These will never change. What will change is what they want in the ideal position and what price they want it at. These traditional customers, and same for all the other customers specific to them, they always want an ideal age of 2 years old and an MTBF, mean time between failures, the reliability score between 14,000 and 19,000. A lower score of 14,000 means that the product is less reliable. You are using cheaper materials, which is good, but the product is not as reliable. 19,000 means you are using the most reliable products that the traditional customers are looking for, but it is more expensive. So let's go over to our spreadsheet tab on the left side. Look at the mean time between failures. It's at 17,500. And they want a score between 14,000 and 19,000. Since the important is only 9%, let's go ahead and lower that to 15,000. And through your undergraduate education, through your marketing, through your human resources, ops, accounting, finance classes, this is a judgment call that I made. You are running your own business, and there is no one correct way to run a business. Right now, I'm just giving you some general tips and tricks to be able to help you get started. Once you get going in the game, you can individualize this to yourself. But for now, follow along how I do it and see if you can learn the Capstone courier so you can start making your own decisions. So we changed it from 17,500 to 15,000. One thing, if you accidentally change a product that you didn't want to, and you want to know what it was the year before, scroll down to the top products in your segment, and it'll show you what your performance was, what your size was, the price, the reliability, age, and a bunch of more information. So we changed it from the 17,500 to 15,000. Let's go ahead and recalculate that. So we have a new revision date of April 20th of 2020. And it actually lowered our material cost because we are using less reliable materials, only slightly, but which are still going to be cheaper. So that means our per unit material cost went from $11.28 to $10.51. Let's go ahead and move on to aft. Let's move on to Atom. Atom has something unique to it that we'll get to later. So, we go to it's not the low end, it's actually the high end market segment analysis. We can see that Atom is our high end product. And to make the changes, we need to go to our situation analysis, and we see in the high end, last year they wanted 8.9 and 11.1, but now they want 9.8 and 10.2. 9.8, 10.2. Let's go ahead and recalculate and notice what that does to our revision date, our age of revision, and our R&D cost. So, our revision date is May 14th, 2021. How is this different from Able? Able's revision date is 4 months out, and it's this year, April 2020. One thing about Atom is that it goes into 2021. Let's say we kept the changes so they'd be at May 14th, 2021. When we, if we were to advance the round, we would not be able to make decisions next round because this is already preoccupied and going through May 2021, so we would not be able to make the decisions. This screen would be locked out. And then we'd fall behind because this won't be ready until round 2, but these are the numbers that they want for round 1. So there are a few things you can do. Let's go back to our Capstone courier and look at their customer buying criteria. They want an ideal position last year of 8.9, 11.1. So they want to make sure the ideal position is in the best position it can be. They want an ideal age of 0. And it is almost impossible to get an ideal age of 0, so you just need to make it as young and as new as it can be, and you do that by changing the product every year. We look at the reliability, and then they care the least about price. So, let's get this revision date into the year 2020, because they want an ideal age of 0, and we won't be able to change this next round if we keep it how it is. So let's go ahead and decrease some of the statistics. Performance was at a 9.8. Let's change this to a 9.1. And let's increase the size to 11. Our goal is to bring this product back into the finished revision date of 2020. So let's go ahead and recalculate that. So this brings us back to the 10th of October 2020. And we see our ideal age went from 1.7 at the beginning of the year. In October it'll be at 2.5. And when it revises, it'll be at 1.2. So this is behind our ideal position, but we can play catch up. And by round 3 or 4, you can be able to be caught up with this product. But for now, let's just focus on bringing it back into year 2020. Let me say one thing about Acre, the low-end product. Let's look at our situation analysis, and low-end, this is actually where they want to be in the 3rd round. And the low-end, they have an ideal age of 7 years old. This is our Capstone courier and our customer buying criteria for the low-end segment. They have an ideal age of 7 years old. If we look at this graph over here, we see that the ideal age, that the actual age is between 4.6 and 5.6. So you will not change Acre until round 3. And when you do make the changes, you'll make them large enough that they'll be ready for round 7. So do not make changes to Acre in these first 2 rounds. Let's go ahead and do Aft. And how do we know what product that is? We can scroll up to our production information. Aft is our PFMN, our performance product. So let's scroll down to our performance and our Capstone courier. And we see reliability is the most important for Aft. Number 2 is ideal position, 3 is price, 4 is age. So let's go to our situation analysis. Round 1, which is next round, Aft wants a performance of 10.4 and a size of 15.3. So let's go ahead and make those changes, and then we hit recalculate. So this is going to send our revision date to the 8th of July, and it's going to have an age of revision of 1.5 years old. Let's look at the reliability, and they care most about the MTBF, mean time between failure. One thing that I forgot to mention was in this top products in the performance segment, we can see what our competitors did. You want to be competitive in the market, so our competitors and us are at 25,000. These 17,500, they only sold 2 units to this segment. These are these circles over here that slightly overlap, so you get some customers who will buy a different product, but just focus on these main 5 products. So our competitors are at 25,000. And since they care about reliability the most, let's go ahead and change Aft to 26,000. And let's hit recalculate. So this actually increased our material cost. But in the long term, this should be able to increase our sales. For Adam, I forgot to change the MTBF, so let's go back to this high end. They want a reliability between 20,000 and 25,000, so we can keep it at 23,000. For low end, which I forgot to change as well, they want a reliability between 12,000 and 17,000. And since, remember the rule, MTBF does not change the age, so we can actually lower the reliability to 13,000. This will decrease our per unit material cost, and since it's only 7% of their buying criteria importance, we'll be able to save costs and hopefully be able to get more sales. So let's go ahead and finish with Agape, which is our size product. Ideal position is number 1, age is 2 of a 1.5, reliability, and then price. So we go to our situation analysis at size. Next round, they want 4.7 and 9.6. And let's look at reliability. That's number 3, and they want it between 16,000 and 21,000. So I think 19,000 is a pretty good measure, so let's keep it at that number and hit recalculate. So we are actually done with our research and development. So let's go ahead and hit File, update our official decisions, and save. The CapSim program, if you have a period of inactivity for longer than 10 minutes or 15 minutes, it'll kick you out and it will not save your work. So each time you make a lot of changes like we did, hit File, update your official decisions. Always update your official decisions, never the draft. So let's go ahead and hit Decisions and move to our marketing. And if at any time in this video you get confused, I'm moving too fast, go ahead and pause, go back, because this is a general overview, but I may forget certain information. And always feel free to reach out to me and ask any specific questions you have. So, our marketing decisions and our marketing spreadsheet are very important. This is where we decide our price, our promo budget, our sales budget. This benchmark prediction, this is a computer-generated forecast number, and I'd always input your own forecast. And then it calculates your gross revenue, variable cost, contribution margin, and then this is the amount left over you have after your promo and sales. So, I mentioned something earlier about price. In the rules of CapSim, there is a rule that says customers are expecting a 50% price decrease every single year. That being said, that does not mean we have to change these prices by 50 cents each year. That means their buying criteria decreases by 50 cents a year. So, the Capstone Courier, which is on our right side right here, is a review of last year. Last year, they expected a price between $30 and $20. Next year, the year that we're preparing for, they will expect a product between $29.50 and $19.50. So let's look at our traditional product, which is Able. They have a price of $28, which is below the next year's top end of $29.50. Price is 23% of our importance, so I think we should keep it at that price, $28. And we see that our competitors are at that $28 mark, so I think we can leave it there. Acre, our low-end product. Price is the most important thing with 53%. So next year, they're expecting a price between $24.50 and $14.50. It can be very tempting and say, oh, I want to decrease my price to $14.50 instantly, and I'll be able to get the most sales. That may be true, but that will be horrible for your contribution margin right here. Look at your competitors, especially for something like low end. Your competitors are at $21. If you were to instantly drop it to the $14 mark, you would lose out on almost all your margin, and you most likely wouldn't be profitable. So, since your competitors are at $21, and price they care about the most, let's go ahead and be a little more competitive, but let's just take a little bit off and assess the market next round. So let's take this number from $21 and let's lower it to $20 even. This should be enough that we have the lowest price in the industry, in the market, and enough that we will still have our margins. So let's go ahead and recalculate, look at what happens to our gross revenue and our promo after sales amount. So our gross revenue went to $29,000 because our benchmark prediction changed because they guessed we're going to sell more. But this benchmark prediction is a computer-generated number, and I would not trust it. So let's move on to Adam. So price is actually their least important at 9%. Last year they wanted a price of $30 to $40. So this year, the year we're preparing for and making decisions for, they will want a price between $39.50 and $29.50. So, since price is the lowest, most important thing, we can actually increase that price up to the upper bound. So right now it's at $38. We could actually change it to $39.50. That'll increase our margins. And then let's move on to aft. Prices are third from the bottom, so it still matters a little bit, but not a whole lot. So next year they'll want a price between $34.50 and $24.50. Right now we're at $33, and I think that's a good number to keep it at. Let's look at Agape. They want a price, the lowest one, between $34.50 and $24.50. So we could increase that to $34. Let's go ahead and hit recalculate. Perfect. So let's move on to our promo budget. If you do not have a physical copy of the book, you can go to your homepage on the Capstone website. And if you hit Getting Started, there's something called the guide. So let's go to the online guide. And this will give us all the information and rules we need to know. For now, let's go to managing our company, and let's go to marketing. So we're going to focus on our promo budget and our sales budget. I believe this is page 12 of the physical book. So let's go to our promo and sales budgets. This gives us a formula for promotion and tells us what it is, and this gives us a formula for awareness and tells it what, for the sales budget, which affects awareness and tells us what it is. So let's look at these figures right here. Figure 4.2 indicates that a $15 million promotion budget would add 36% to the starting awareness. Figure 4.2 indicates that a $3 million budget would add 50% to the starting awareness. Let's scroll down a little bit more. And this is some very useful information. So there is something called diminishing returns, which means after a certain point, after it hits this dotted line right here, the curve actually begins to decline and go back flat. Right here, between $0 and $1.5 million, you're getting the most benefit, the most bang for your buck. So, promotion budget increases in promotion budgets have diminishing returns. The first $15 million buys 36% awareness. Spending an additional $15 million for a total of $3 million buys just under 50%. The second $15 million buys less than 14%. So, the optimal price to spend is the $1.5 million. So, in our promo budget, we're going to adjust all of these to $1.5 million, which is $1,500 because it cuts out 3 zeros. And let's go ahead and recalculate. And there's a similar principle for our sales budget. Figure 4.3, sales budget. For budgets above $3 million, the red dotted line indicates there are no additional returns for companies that have one product in the segment. So, the first $2 million buys 22% accessibility. For companies with 2 or more products in a segment, spending $4 million buys just under 35. So the second $2 million buys less than 13% additional accessibility. So, with the sales budget, if you have multiple products in a segment, you can fiddle around with these numbers more. But for now, look up here. It says if you have one product in a segment, which we do now, there is no additional benefit to spending more than $3 million. If you have 2 or more products, there's no additional benefit above $4.5 million between the 2 products. So for now, let's go ahead and adjust that sales budget to $3 million, which is $3,000 in the spreadsheet. And let's recalculate. So looking at this promo and sales, we see aft has actually a negative number, which means we'll be losing money on this. And during these first couple rounds, that's okay. We look at Able. The benchmark predicts there's going to be 2,400 sales in Able, which is our traditional, which is the biggest market now. But aft is one of the smaller ones. So as this is growing and as you're investing so much money, that's okay. Going back to our Capstone courier, the promo budget affects this customer awareness and this customer accessibility number. Once these numbers hit 100%, you can go back in the book and find the exact amounts that you need to put in your promo and sales budget to maintain that number. So let's move on to the actual marketing forecast. In the bottom right of this page that you've seen, that I've had up, I have 3 formulas. This is our marketing, our conservative forecast formula. The reason why it says conservative is because the numbers we put in marketing are used to estimate our finances. We want to be conservative, so our estimates, we'll have enough money to pay off everything if it's sort of our worst case scenario. If we sell just a general average or even low amount, that we'll have enough money to pay off all that. And that'll make more sense why when we go into the finance section. So, we need our Capstone courier, and we're going to need 3 pieces of information. We're going to need our total industry unit demand, which you can see by segment in this segment analysis. So the total industry unit demand of 7,387 units means that last year, every single competitor, every single product, Able, Baker, Cake, Days, Eat, Fast, and all these other products, sold a total of 7,387 units. So, let's go ahead and put the 7,387 units in our spreadsheet. And I personally really like spreadsheets. I use them a lot for work. You can do this by hand, but I find easiest to do spreadsheets. If you are not comfortable with spreadsheets, this could be a good way to learn spreadsheets, but if you're more comfortable doing it with pen and paper and by hand, that's okay too. So, the total amount sold for our traditional product was 7,387. And then our growth rate, which means next year, and this number will never change, it is always the same. Next year, the market is going to grow by 9.2%. So that means the 7,387 is going to grow by 9.2%. So, in our formula, we need to make this 9.2 plus 1, because 100% of sales is the same 7,387. 1 plus the 9.2%, which we find up here, is last year's demand plus the 9.2% of growth. So let's enter 100 and 109.2% growth. Our last year market share, which we can find in these tables right here, was about 16%. If you want specific information, you scroll down to, I think it's the third from bottom page of your Capstone courier, and you look at this market share report. Let's look at traditional. And last year for traditional, we had 16.7%. These are all the same across every single industry just because it's the beginning round. So we look at 16.7, we type in 16.7%, and it's going to equal our marketing forecast. So, if you're not familiar with Excel, or this is actually Google Sheets, we're entering a formula. Equals, and we're going to enclose it in parentheses because we have to do these two first, are 7,387 multiplied by the 109.2%. We're going to close our parentheses, and we're going to time that number, the 8,067, times last year's market share. So let me go ahead and add another column. This is going to make a little bit more sense. So this is going to be next year's total sales. So doing this, next year's total sales, including that growth rate, is going to be 8,067 units. So our marketing forecast is taking this 8,067 units multiplied by the 16.7% market share which we found in our Capstone courier. So assuming that the market grows, but we keep the exact same market share, we're going to sell 1,347 units. So let's go ahead and not our price, not our promo budget, our marketing forecast. Let's input 1,347 units. Let's recalculate, and this is going to affect our revenue, our variable cost, contribution margin, and less promo sales. And see how it's almost 1,000 off from our benchmark prediction? That's because we use a conservative number, and the marketing is a little bit more aggressive in the game. But to make sure you never get an emergency loan, always be conservative in your marketing forecast. You can change these numbers if you like, but this is how I do it, and this is how I felt comfortable in the game. Each professor, each teacher, each student's going to do this a little bit differently, but these are just some general tips and tricks to help you out. So, for sakes of time, I'm going to move on, but you're going to have to do this formula for Able, Acre, Atom, Aft, Agape. And see, traditional for Able had 9.2% growth rate. We go to low end, and they have, last year they sold 8,960, and they have 11.7% growth rate. So you have to make sure that you do one of these and a specific one for each individual product. So we updated this, and remember to update our official decisions, and we save. Always update official decisions, never your draft, because that'll make it available for your professor and your teammates, and you can change it as many times as you need. But always update your official decisions. So let's go to decisions, go to production, and the production tab is what we are actually going to produce. Let's look at Able, and let's go down the column. Unit sales forecast, this is the number we just inputted. At the end of last year, we had 189 units. Our production schedule is how many units we're actually producing. And this production after adjustment, the production takes into the constraints, and it's an automated number that it puts in, but you do not need to worry about that. Second shift production percentage. This says how much of your company is using overtime to produce Able. Labor cost, material cost, contribution margin. Contribution margin is how much money you have left over after you paid your variable cost to pay your fixed cost. Our first shift capacity. This is very important. So this means from 9 to 5, our first shift, our regular shift, can produce 1,800 units. That being said, CapSim has a rule that you can actually double your first shift capacity by working your employees overtime. So they're no longer working 9 to 5, they're working 9 to midnight or whatever it is. So this first shift capacity is 18%, and if you were to make the second shift production 100% by using all your overtime, this 1,800 would be 3,600. You can change your capacity levels. You can change this 1,800. This automation rating is how automated your company is. We'll get to that later. You can change the automation, and this is the investment amount. And remember, if you do not know some of this information, like if you don't know what this complement is, you can hit I. The number of workers in your workforce, there are 2 shifts. So there's a first shift, and then there's an overtime second shift. And right here it says the second shift or overtime workers cost you 50% more per hour than workers on first shift. And the simulation schedules second shift workers as a last resort. So this gives you a lot of good information. So let's go back to our forecasting sheet, and I have another formula. So we take our marketing forecast, this is our production forecast formula, which is a more realistic number. So for Able, we take our marketing forecast, which we calculated over here, of 1,347, and we multiply it by however much we think we're going to grow. During this first round, it's safe to assume that we're going to grow about 20%. So that means last year we sold 60% of the market. If we multiply that by 20%, that means we believe we're going to have 19% of the market, which I think is a safe number. So let's go ahead and take our marketing forecast and let's multiply that by 20%. So our production forecast, how many we actually think we're going to sell, is 20% times 1,347. But remember, we have to do the 1 plus 20%. So let's change this to 120. So we do the 1,347 times 1 plus 20%. And we believe that we're going to sell 1,616 units. And I'd say that is a fairly safe and good number. 1,617. So, that is our ideal forecast, our realistic forecast. But we are not done yet, because we have inventory on hand left over from last year. So we take our production forecast, which we just calculated, and we're going to figure out our production schedule. When you work in operations, you have something called a production schedule. And this is how many units you think you're going to make, when, and how you're going to make them. So we take our estimated actual sales forecast, which is our production forecast, minus our inventory on hand, which we see up here is 189. So we minus that. So we take 1,617, subtract that from 189. And our production schedule is going to be 1,617 minus 189. And this is going to equal 1,428 units that we need to produce. So in our production schedule, let's put 1,428 units. Let's go ahead and recalculate it. So, we are done with the production schedule for Able. And you would do this for Able, Acre, Atom, Aft, and Agape. This is why I like spreadsheets, because you can create a couple of formulas and you can use them for everything and it becomes fast. So let's move on to our first shift capacity. From 9 to 5, our first shift workers can create up to 1,800 units. So this means we have a surplus of 372 units per year. That being said, we do not just want people to stand around. Our complement, we have 700 workers, so that means 100 of them are just standing around doing nothing, or they're all, leaving early. So we want to maximize our workforce, so we need to change our capacity. And there are 2 rules for capacity. When you change capacity, when you sell capacity, you get the money instantly. Your capacity will instantly change. Let's say we wanted to sell 500 units of capacity. This is going to change that number from 1,800 automatically to 1,300. You get this investment back of $7.1 million. Right here it says 7,150, and it changes your capacity. But if we were to add capacity, it actually takes a full year before it goes into effect. So if we estimated that we're going to sell more than 1,800 next year, we have to add capacity now. So let's say we want to add 200. We're going to hit recalculate. And this is going to stay at 1,800 because it takes a full year to update. So let's look at our production schedule, which we just barely calculated. And we assume this year we're going to sell 1,617 units. And because we can use a little bit of overtime, let's go ahead and so we need to sort of look into the future for next year. So let's take this 1,617 and let's change our capacity to that number. So let's go ahead and subtract 200. You don't have to be exact. So this is going to change it to 1,600. And next year, when we grow by a couple hundred units, we'll be able to use a little bit of our overtime, and slowly we're going to have to start adding capacity. For Acre, you're going to have to add a little bit of capacity, but for Atom, Aft, Agape, you're going to have to actually decrease your capacity. But round by round, you're going to have to adjust your capacity, and you're going to have to adjust your automation. Let's look at this automation rating. So, automation is on a scale from 1 to 10. At 1, you rely heavily on skilled workers. At 10, robots do most of the production. So, at a 1, labor cost would be $12 per unit. At a 10, labor cost would be $1.2 a unit. But automation is expensive. To increase your automation, it's expensive. To do R&D, it's expensive. Automation does not, let me say that again, automation does not affect your capacity. So, for products that update every year, like Able, Atom, Aft, and Agape, you're going to want to have a lower automation rating. Because these products are always changing, they're on the cutting edge, they're moving fast. But for something like Acre, which is on the low end, which you only change once or twice during the game, I'd suggest only once, we can actually increase that to about a 6.0. So let's go ahead and recalculate. And we see that it's going to cost us $5.6 million. So, you'd make decisions for automation. I'd leave this at a 4 and a 333 and maybe update low end. But as you're making decisions and as you get more comfortable, you can make your own decisions. So, we're done with Able. You're going to have to do this with Able, Acre, Atom, Aft, and Agape. So we're only 1/5 done with the production, but we're going to move on to finances. So this is human resources, and for now, there's nothing you can change. I know a couple of the professors have to spend money on training costs and recruiting costs, but if you hit the I next to those, it'll tell you more information about it, and you can find more information in the guide in the book. So let's go ahead and update our official decisions from our production, which I forgot to do, and let's move to finance. So after you've made all your decisions, after you've gone through R&D, marketing, production, human resources, and finance, this is going to take us to our finance page. This gives us good information. We have 44.2% long-term debt, retained earnings of 29%, no current debt, our AP 7.3, and our common stocks 19.5. We spent $5.6 million on plant improvements. We sold $2.8 million worth of the plant. This is our stock information. Right now we have an earnings per share loss of $1.1, which is fine in these first couple rounds. Like any startup, you're going to lose money in the first couple years. A round is a year, so it's okay to lose money in the first couple of rounds. It's very likely that after you fill out the entire spreadsheet, this cash position is going to be zero. So remember, this December 31st, 2019, this is what we have currently. So right now, in the bank, we have $3,434, which is actually $3,434,000. So, next year, the finances estimate we are going to have a cash position of $8,389,000. So that's why in marketing, we used a conservative forecast, because the numbers that we use here affect our finances. So just for the sake of teaching you guys how to do this, let's say our forecast really was 1. It was actually super low. These aren't the real numbers you're going to put in, but I'll see the effect that it has on your finances. So it changed our finances, and now oh, I did that too much, I'm sorry. So see how that number changed? It was at $60 million when I did that. So let's go to our finances. And so, since we changed our marketing, it estimates we're going to have a negative cash position of $12 million. And we do not want a negative cash position at the end of the next year. And this is an estimated number, which it's likely to change, because production we are more realistic, but if your cash position is below $0, you will get an emergency loan, which is very expensive, and you want to avoid at all costs. So a rule of thumb, always have this estimated ending cash position above 0. And to do that, we can either issue common stock, issue current debt, or issue long-term debt. And I'd recommend issuing long-term debt, which is a bond. So we owe $12,734,000. So let's go ahead and issue $15 million. So this is going to bring it up to about $677,000. So this is our maximum issue. We could have done up to $18,000 in long-term debt in our bonds. But this is a good, safe number. So for now, let's keep it at the 677. And let's go ahead and update our official decisions. Save. And you can go back, check out all the decisions you've made, but we're done. We're ready to advance the round. We updated our official decisions, so let's go ahead and exit. And during these practice rounds, you will advance the round yourself. So, when you're with your teams, your professor will do that for you. And he and she will have their own rules about when they'll advance it. So let's advance to the next round. It's going to ask, are you sure? Yes, advance the game to the next round. Are you really sure? Yes, advance my game. So, our game has been successfully advanced to round 2. And let's go ahead and look at our Capstone courier. So, we go to our dashboard. We go to reports. Industry reports, and let's go to our Capstone courier. So, this means we advanced the round, and now for last year, the year we just completed, we can see what happened to our company. We can see we didn't get an emergency loan, but we had $129 million worth of sales. We had a 31.5% contribution margin. Our market share actually increased to 18.36. Our stock price decreased. So for the next round, what you're going to do, you're going to look and you see, okay, here's my Able product. How much do I have left over? And you're going to restart this process. And you can already see, like, look at our performance. You can see that we're already the leader. But some of these other companies, they're not doing as well. So, even though we didn't make decisions in that round, we still did pretty good. Everything grew except for our high end. We actually lost a little bit of market share in our high end. So, that's how you do a round. There are a bunch more tips and tricks and little rules that you'll learn, but that's all you need. So, when you start a new round, make sure you have your Capstone courier, you have your situation analysis, and you'll be able to make all the changes you need to and you have to. Use these formulas right here, and text me, email me with any questions you have. I hope this helps, and good luck as you continue CapSim. This can be a wonderful class. This is my favorite class, but you have to put in the work now. Good luck, and thank you.